Every banknote in your wallet tells a lie. It tells you it is a neutral medium of exchange. But the truth? Money was never neutral. Money does not speak. History speaks. And history whispers this to us. Money has always been power's quietest, most enduring weapon. Most of us learned the same fairy tale in school. Once upon a time there was barter. It was inefficient. Then someone had a bright idea. Money. And civilization advanced. A clean, logical, comforting story. And completely wrong. Money was not invented to make trade easier. It was invented because power needed a tool. And when that tool emerged, it permanently shaped who controlled value, labor, and violence. Here is the truth. Small communities did not barter. They relied on memory, obligation, and trust. You gave because you belonged. You received because you were known. Debts were not written down, they were remembered. This system worked perfectly at small scale, but scale changes everything. Villages turned into cities. Strangers arrived. You were forced to trade with people you did not know. And that's when the problem began. Trust did not scale. Memory collapsed. Violence increased. And rulers faced a dilemma. How do you feed an army that does not know you? How do you tax people you will never see again? How do you extract value from a population spread across vast territories? Money entered the stage at this point, not as convenience, but as infrastructure. Value needed a body to travel distance. Something durable, portable, divisible. Food rotted. Animals ran away. Land did not move. Labor vanished the moment it was used. Metal solved the problem. Copper, bronze, silver. They were not chosen because they were shiny. They were chosen because they behaved well under pressure. They did not decay. They could be melted and reshaped. They could be divided into precise quantities, and most importantly, rare enough to matter, but common enough to circulate. But it was not merchants who turned metal into money. It was rulers. Early states in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Eastern Mediterranean did not need money for trade. They needed it to give orders. Armies do not fight on promises. Soldiers do not march on goodwill. They demand payment, standardized, recognizable, enforceable payment. And this is where the system locked in. When states demanded taxes and metal, everything changed. People who had previously lived largely outside markets were forced into them. Subsistence became obligation. Harvests became debt. To obtain metal, peasants had to sell their goods, their labor, their time. Markets did not emerge organically. They were pulled into existence by taxation and power. Money does not speak. History speaks. Money did not free people. It made rulers far more efficient. Here is the part rarely found in history books. Money was not neutral. It was not invented to facilitate trade among equals. It was designed to measure, extract, and redeploy value at scale. Once value became extractable, it could be stored. Once stored, it could be accumulated. Once accumulated, it could be converted into power. That is why early financial centers were not marketplaces. They were temples and palaces. Priests and kings tracked grain, metal, and labor long before merchants traded freely. Accounting came before coinage. Ledgers came before markets. The system was built top-down, not bottom-up. Then came the revolution, stamped metal. When early states began minting coins, marking pieces of metal with official symbols, weights, and authority, they did more than standardize trade. They stamped trust itself. A coin said something powerful. You do not need to trust the person who gives this to you. You only need to trust the authority that stamped it. Authority replaced relationship. In Lydia, in the Greek city-states, and later in Rome, Coins carried faces, gods, symbols of power. These were not merely economic tools. They were political messages. Every transaction reinforced who ruled. Every payment reminded people which system they lived under. Once rulers realized this, temptation came fast. Control the money and you control how much exists. You control its purity. You control its circulation. Early governments learned they could stretch resources by reducing metal content, clipping edges, or minting more coins than reserves justified. Spending became easier. Consequences were delayed. Inflation was not discovered in modern times. It was invented the moment money became adjustable. Prices rose. Trust weakened. Soldiers demanded higher pay. Markets adapted. Yet the system persisted because once money existed, societies could not go back. The tool was too useful, too powerful, too deeply embedded in how value moved. And here is the critical distinction. Money did not drift away from power. It evolved alongside it. The bronze coins of ancient empires may be gone, but the logic they created never left. We still use standardized units. We still trust authority to define value. We still accept abstraction in place of trust. Modern money does not jingle in pockets, but it still carries the DNA of bronze and silver. Today's currencies are not backed by metal, but by authority, obligation, and enforcement. Taxes must still be paid. Debts are still enforceable. Armies are still financed. Scarcity is still managed, not by nature but by policy. The language became more sophisticated. We say liquidity instead of debasement. Balance sheets instead of coin clipping. Institutions instead of emperors. But the underlying mechanism did not change. Money is still designed to move value efficiently through a system built around power. This does not make modern finance evil, it makes it human. The mistake people make is assuming money evolved to be fair. It did not. It evolved to be scalable. Justice was always a secondary concern. Money does not speak. History speaks. Inflation, debt, and financial crises are not anomalies. They are features of a structure designed to manage large populations, large obligations, and large power imbalances. True financial freedom does not come from rejecting money. It comes from understanding what money was built to do and what it was never designed to provide. Money can carry value. It can store labor. It can coordinate massive systems. But it cannot replace judgment. It cannot guarantee justice. And it cannot protect those who confuse structure with morality. From barter to bronze, from coin to digital, the story is consistent. Money did not emerge to make life easier. It emerged to make power portable. And once power became portable, it reshaped everything it touched. The most dangerous assumption is not that money is corrupt. It is that money is neutral. History does not repeat itself, but the logic it runs on rarely changes. And once you see that logic clearly, you stop asking why the system behaves the way it does. You start asking a better question: where do I stand within it? Money does not speak. History speaks, and history is showing you the truth of today.